We are truly back from winter break and off to the races in so many ways. So do take a look at your sheet. There's all kinds of stuff happening this week. Today at 11:30, for our youth, we're actually doing a self-defense class for our youth. So if you're a youth member of the youth group, please stick around for
Pastor, that's for everybody. Anybody? Everybody.
Okay, it's everybody.
Yeah, $12.
Come on, learn how to use your keys as a weapon. I don't know if that's true or not, but it could be. But that is being brought to you by our youth ministries, and that is for everybody 11:30, and that'll be out in the fellowship courtyard. If you did not get your calendars, we actually have some extra ones. These are 6 calendars as a fundraiser, so do look at that. There are meetings this week for SPRC, Worship Committee, Congregational Care, all sorts of things. So if you're on any of those committees, take a look at that. Our adult education is really getting back into full swing this week. So we have our 6-week study on Tuesday night, starting this Tuesday at 6:30, I believe. Sure, we'll go with that. Our book study on happiness. There's a few books in the office, so if you've ordered a book and you want it, it's probably in the office. Deeper Dive will be going back in action this Thursday. One of the things that we're going to be doing in Deeper Dive is looking at the characters, the small characters in the Bible you've never heard of that I couldn't figure out how to preach a sermon on. Right? Like there were a couple of them that are really weird. And I'm like, I don't know how I could preach on this, but I want to talk about it. So that's what we're going to be doing the next couple of Thursday nights. So do come be a part of that. Next week is our dessert auction and potluck. So bring something for the potluck and something to either donate. Everyone's welcome to bring something to be auctioned off. And everybody's encouraged to buy something. And this is from our missions committee, and we'll sponsor the work of our missions committee. All right. So the last thing is this. We got a note. I got a note as a parent of a child at Letford. Most of us did, about a need that they had there. They occasionally need to send especially small boys home in pants other than the ones they came in. As the father of a previous small boy, I understand this happens. So they could use a good supply of pants, and the thing that works best is like sweatpants and boys ages 4 to 10. So I got that note and I said, hey, I got a group of people that I bet can solve this problem. And so Lee and the missions committee said, yes, we can. So we're going to this Sunday, next Sunday, maybe the Sunday after, we'll be collecting boys' pants. Boys age sizes 4 to 10 that will take over to Letford and help meet that need. Because trust me, if you need them, you need them. So let's help solve that problem for our neighbor to the north. All right, now I'm going to invite you to stand and join in our opening song.
Let the I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love that song. Well, good morning and welcome to worship this morning at the United Methodist Church of Johnstown. I am Jeremy Scott, pastor and Joy Officer, here with you live and in person today. I did really miss you all last week, but I got to watch the live stream, which was pretty awesome. So technology is great. Today we're going to continue looking at these characters in the Bible that you may or may not ever heard of. I will say after worship the last Sunday, and then I got a comment about the previous Sundays as well. Every time at least some persons come up to me and said, I knew who that was. Good. I said may not have heard of. And today, now for the first two, we dealt with a couple of characters that we may not have heard of, are pretty minor characters in the Bible, but in their time were really important people. Today we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about somebody who really, even in his time, really was just kind of another guy who, more by luck than anything else, stumbled into an opportunity to play a small but actually really important role in the life of God's people. And I think that's really important for us to remember and recognize. Actually, the whole point of this whole series is to remember and recognize, even if sometimes we feel like maybe we're not the most important person or the world may not remember what we did, it does not mean what we do isn't valuable. And sometimes it's actually the people that we don't notice, the people whose names aren't in lights, the people who don't get to stand in front with microphones and be all like, yay! That it's all the other people who are actually making the most important contributions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about in this guy named Jethro, who actually by luck more than anything else ends up being Moses' father-in-law. Now, you might not know that wisdom can come from your in-laws. My in-laws are awesome. Hi, Chris. But they can. It actually can. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm glad you're all here and a part of that this morning, because I think sometimes we need to, this is a reminder that we all desperately need. All right. Well, I'm actually going to invite you to stand once again and join in our call to worship.
Moses was the greatest among God's people.
From a humble birth, he fought and saved many.
All the people looked to him to lead.
Despite the challenges, he gave all he had.
And yet, Moses could not do it all. He was only one person.
So we must remember, we can always do so much.
If you'll please remain standing for the song, This Is My Song.
This is my home, the country
We do come to that time in our service where we engage in a holy act of listening as we share with each other our joys and concerns. Let's see, we have a prayer request from Ruth Nelson, who has a new great-great-grandbaby girl. Wow. Yes. The parents are Donnie and Megan Cook, grandparents of, I'm not going to get this right. I apologize. Anywho, new great-great-grandbaby. Good job. Way to be. Oh, man. I don't even know how to think about that. All right. All right. Other joys or concerns people have this morning? Oh,
Yeah,
one in the
okay.
back.
Yeah. I have a concern for my mom. She's been sick for almost a week now with, like, I don't know, like a cold flu. So prayers for her to get well soon, please.
Yes. Prayers for my wife. There's a strain of flu going around that the shot does not help with, unfortunately, and so she caught it. And her birthday's like on Wednesday, so we're like, we just want to get her better by her birthday. That's the goal. Other joys or concerns this morning? Down in front. Oh, let's do the one in the back, and then we'll come down here.
Let's just keep our government in our prayers this
Absolutely.
week. This is going to be a tough week, so let's just pray that let's just pray for them all.
Let's pray for them all. Absolutely. All right, all the way down front, Vivs. You're young. You can move fast. That's why we...
I'd like some prayers for our 3.5-year-old granddaughter, Adeline. She, last year, was in the hospital quite a bit with RSV and pneumonia and asthma. She did not have RSV this time, however, she has viral pneumonia, and they're looking at the possibility she may have asthma on a regular basis. So she's home again, and they're doing treatments, breathing treatments for her. So she needs some prayers of healing.
Thank you.
We need some prayers for Mary Knudsen. Cleora and I went and saw her Tuesday, and she was doing well, and then she fell, and she has a bruised face, so she needs some prayers too.
Absolutely. Prayers for Mary. Any others this morning? All right. Well, let's go to God in prayer together. Gracious and loving God, you have delivered to us this morning blue skies and sunshine, despite the cool temperatures. And God, we are grateful for them, as we are grateful for every sunrise that impresses us with your glory. As we are grateful for the ability to gather in this place with friends and family, old and new, a place where we can be known, a place where we can speak aloud our joys and our concerns, a place that we know that we are listened to. God, for all of these blessings that you have placed into our lives, thank you does not feel like enough, but it is what we have to offer. So this morning, God, we just ask that you help us have hearts open to the movement of your Spirit. God, that in this place and in this time, we can become even a little bit more your disciples. Live a little bit more like your beloved children. Be a little bit more your hands and feet. We do that, God, because we recognize all of those who have been your hands and feet for us. All of those who have borne your grace and your peace and your love for us. For those who offer a handshake and a hug at the right time. God, it is increasingly rare to find opportunities like we have here this morning. So help us to know and be grateful and to live as you have asked us to live. God, we also come in here with concerns. Many whom we love and we care about are in need of healing. Healing of the body, healing of the mind, healing of their very souls. So God, for whatever people are looking for, help them to find it. Help them to get to that place of peace and hope and comfort that we all strive for. God, we come here this morning not knowing what the future holds. It feels ever more chaotic all the time. God, those who we have entrusted those whom are over us to lead us. God, we pray for them. We pray that your wisdom and that your grace and that your peace rain down, and that we all find a way to set aside our personal, dare we say, selfish desires, and instead focus our time and our energy and our effort on the more important work that you are doing. God, we come here humble. We come here broken. We come here not yet perfect. And we come here trusting that you are glad to see us all the same. So help us this morning, God, to be your people, to be glad to see one another, knowing that none of us has fully gone or become all that you have asked us to, but knowing, God, that we are all striving. We lift this morning, this time that we are given, and all that we have in this world, up to you. And we do it by honoring your Son and praying the prayer that he taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Amen. Well, it is a third Sunday, and on the third Sundays, we have committed to keeping you all apprised on the financial state of our church. It kind of helps figure out what we can and can't do. Actually, we had an amazing and robust conversation this morning in the Administrative Council just about how we are going to leverage and use the great abundance that we actually ended up receiving in 2019. And it's something I would invite you to continue to celebrate. And I think we did some really good work balancing both the need to make sure that we have a long-term financial base to stand on and recognize there's some things in the short term we need to work on. So you'll get some more information about that in the coming weeks. But there's another financial aspect of our church that we wanted to give you a quick update on, and that is our endowment. So I'm inviting Bob Cogswell, who's actually the chair of our endowments committee, to give us a no more than 2-minute update on the endowment before we collect the offering.
Okay, so that's who I am, and that's why I'm here. If you all recall or were here last spring, we talked about the endowment fund, and at that time, we went through as part of the finance committee and the endowment committee and updated what we do and how that thing works, obviously with the approval and input from the Ad Council. Back in the spring, the endowment fund is a permanent fund, by the way. There's a baseline established I'll get to in a second. And that money is there, and it's always there. And back in the spring, we established a baseline that we wanted to get that fund to $100,000. And once we were at $100,000 at the end of the calendar year, any overages that we would have, we would look at allocating funding to different activities, committees, groups in the church. Last year, or last spring, it was determined that if we got to the $100,000 threshold, that we would look at allocating money to the youth group into this year. Last spring, that money, or the amount of money in that fund was at about $85,000. So we had kind of a stretch to get to the $100,000. There's three ways that money goes into that account. One is through market gains. That fund is managed by Edward Jones and different categories of things that go in there. A second way that it gets funding is through gifts from living members of the congregation, church, friends, whoever they may be. And the third way is through estate planning as a leave behind. The fund grew this year because of what happened with Edward Jones's stewardship of that account, as well as many of you, I'm sure most of you know, the performance of the market. That fund ended at $103,600 at the end of December for this year. So it had a really great year. And as a result of that, as we had committed to in the spring, it was determined through the finance and the endowment group that we would, in fact, allocate $2,500, the money's there, to the youth group for their activities for this year. So we got that done this week, and we've lived through that, and we're currently at that $100,000 threshold. So as a reminder, or as an ask, I guess, as you do charitable donation planning for this year, if you're doing any estate planning, if you would put into your consideration something going into the endowment fund. As I said, it is a permanent fund. As that money grows over that $100,000, we'll be able to do more and more to different groups and activities here in the church, once again, through the approval and consent with the Ad Council. It's a very, very worthwhile cause and a very worthwhile endeavor, and it's something that continues to grow and continues to always be there. So thank you very much.
I know anytime we talk about money, some of you like check your Facebook and you're like your eyes glaze over. I get it, but it really does make a big impact on the ministry that we have here, and so much of what we do is determined, not by people or anything like that, but is by the resources we have available to us. So the endowment fund is a great resource that's really going to help us continue to invest in our youth ministry. So thank you to everyone who serves on that committee. Dealing with these investment portfolios and stuff like that is a bit of a thankless task, but it is an important one, and it will mean a lot of good things happen in this church because of it. So your all's faithfulness is really impressive and doing good work. So now I'm going to invite forward our ushers who are going to help collect this morning's tithes and offerings.
Give a little bit of your love to me. I'll give a little bit of my love to you. There's so much that we need to share, so send a smile and show you care. I'll give a little bit of my life for you. So give a little bit, I'll give a little bit of your time to me. See the man with the lonely eyes, oh, take his hand, you'll be surprised.
Gracious and loving God, you have blessed each and every one of us. You have given us the resources to live in this world. We return back to you a piece of what you have entrusted to us, and we give it to this place so that more may know of your love and your grace. Amen. Children forward.
What is going on? That is a very good question. There's a puppet theater there, but Miss Dane is sick, and she is Ashley, and no one else can be Ashley. So, unfortunately or fortunately, you get me this morning. So, good morning. Good morning, good morning. We're going to do things backwards today.
Backwards?
We're already messed up. We're already discombobbled, so we're going to do something different today. Okay?
We're gonna do.
So, we're going to say a prayer.
No, if anyone could be Ashley, it's
Let's say a prayer. Can you fold your hands, bow your heads, and repeat after me? Dear God, thank you for this time, and thank you for these friends.
And thank you for these friends.
Help us to remember
Help us to remember
there are things we can do to show others we are God's children. Help us to do those things. Amen.
Wait, what?
All right. I know. So now I'm going to do the children's moment. So I need all of you to go down to the bottom. Okay? Go down here. I'm gonna give you some jobs. Okay? And I need you to do those jobs. No. Ellery, listen. Okay? I need you to do what I ask you to do and keep doing it until I say stop. Okay? All right. Are you ready? All right. I want you all to squat like a duck. Get like a duck. Like this. You're going to go down like this and squat like a duck. Okay? Okay. Now I want you to put one thumb on your ear and the other thumb on your pinky on your nose. Okay? Not in your nose, on your nose. Okay? All right. Take your other hand and start patting your head with it. So you're still like a duck. Okay? Okay. Now I want you to stick your tongue out, and without making any noises, wiggle it. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay? All right. All right. Are you going? Are you doing it? Okay. Now I want you to start nodding your head. Okay. Now in just a second, I'm going to say that you're dismissed to Sunday school, but I want you on your way to Sunday school, keep doing what you're doing, to stop and talk to 3 people and tell them that God loves them. Okay? Got it? Can you do that?
Yes. No.
No.
Yes.
No. Okay, stop everything you're doing. Have a seat. So I'm pretty sure Pastor Jeremy's going to talk about, while you guys are in Sunday school, that we can do lots of things, but we can't do everything. We cannot do everything. So we have to choose, and we have to choose wisely. Of all of those things that I just asked you to do, what do you think would be the most important?
The last one.
Remy?
Love God.
To love God and to share that love, right? Mm-hmm. So in just a minute, I'm going to dismiss you. And on your way out, can you find 3 people to give a high five to and say, God loves you? Can I practice? Ready? Vivian, God loves you. I think that's an important thing to do. All right. You are excused to Sunday school. I'm going to ask you to walk, but I'm going to send some of you down each aisle. So can you guys maybe go down that aisle? And can you guys go down that aisle? And some of you go down the middle and find 3 people. Give them a high five and say, God loves you.
You can't do that.
Have a great day, guys.
Don't do that.
it don't have a job. It don't pay your bills, won't buy you a home in Beverly Hills, won't fix your life in 5 easy steps. Ain't the law of the land, the government, but it's all you need, and love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm, and I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. It's waiting for you, knocking at your door. And heart, moment of truth, when your heart is the floor, and you're on your knees, and love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm, and I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. This is the first day of the rest of your life. This is the first day of the rest of your life. 'Cause even in the dark, you can still see the light. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. This is the first day of the rest of your life. This is the first day of the rest of your life. 'Cause even in the dark, you can still see the light. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. And love will hold us together, make us the shelter to weather the storm, and I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone.
The word this morning comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 18, verses 13 through 27, and features Moses' father-in-law, Jethro. The next day, Moses sat as judge for the people, while the people stood around him from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, "What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit all alone while all the people stand around you from morning until evening?" Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make known to them the statutes and instructions of God." Moses' father-in-law said to him, "What you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people with you. For the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You should represent the people before God, and you should bring their cases before God. Teach them the statutes and instructions, and make known to them the way they are to go and the things they are to do. You should also look for able men among all the people, men who fear God, are trustworthy, and hate dishonest gain. Set such men over them as officers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them sit as judges for the people at all times. Let them bring every important case to you, but decide every minor case themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all these people will go to their home in peace. So Moses listened to his father-in-law and did all that he said. Moses chose able men from all Israel and appointed them as heads over the people, as officers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And they judged the people at all times. Hard cases they brought to Moses, but any minor case they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went off to his own country. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I don't know that I've ever been as grateful for a long passage of scripture that needed to be read, because I needed a minute. Like, admittedly, of course, that was my son, as part of that. So I was like, it's just personal connection, but wow. Okay, I should just shut up and go home. Like, it's like they did. Man, the youth in this church, let me tell you. Goodness. All right. So today we are obviously talking about Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law. He shows up very briefly, only in a couple of places in the book of Exodus. And this is one of those places where he shows up. But we're not going to start talking about him. I want to talk about something that most of us probably deal with on a regular basis, and that is the dishwasher. Now, I don't know how it is in your house, but if you live in a home with more than one adult in it, there's always sometimes this debate about who does what. All right, so if you live in a home with more than one adult in it, raise your hand if it's always one of those adults who loads the dishwasher. All right, keep your hand raised if you are the one who loads the dishwasher because nobody else does it right. Yes, exactly. That is definitely the condition in my household, is that, and I am, as you may have guessed, I am the one who loads the dishwasher. Because everyone else, in their good-naturedness, and I'm sure in willingness to help, always do it wrong. Because there is a right way to do it, so you can get the most in there, so you don't have to run it any more than you have to, because who wants to run the dishwasher more than they have to? And after many a year, remember, I was raised by a single mom. I have been loading a dishwasher my entire life. There is a system. And it's just easier for me to do it than try to teach somebody the system. Plus, their eyes will glaze over, and they'll look at you funny if you try to teach you the system. I will. No, as a means of confession, I will tell you, I seriously, before any plateware or anything comes into my house, I have to evaluate it for its dishwasher worthiness, right? I'm like, that's not dishwashable. It is not coming home. All right. But this is what we do, right? And in small things with the dishwasher, it's fine, right? Because fine, I load the dishwasher, but I very much do not do laundry for the opposite reasons, right? Because there is a system to laundry that I have not, shall we say, bothered to learn. So much so, this is another aside, apparently that's what we're going to do this morning. My wife just recently brought home a second hamper and labeled them, and one's labeled laundry and one's labeled delicates, which might as well say, Jeremy, don't touch, right? Don't touch these. If you must wash these. And with small things, it's fine, and we live in this life, right? Because we like things, there are certain things that we all just like done a certain way, all right? And we've got some skill, and we've got some experience, and we know the right things to do, the right way to do things. And sometimes, honestly, it is more trouble than it's worth to get somebody else to do it. And if it's the dishwasher, so long as the dishes are getting done, and you're not super martyry about it, don't do that, then it's okay. That's not a big deal. The problem is we often take that same idea and that same logic and we apply it to other things that are bigger deals. And there does come this time where we have to recognize what is our third phrase in our church? You cannot do everything, so do something, right? It's on these little orange bracelets. If you don't have them, they're on the back right there. They're wonderful, right? But we have to actually live into that first phrase. We can't do everything. We want to do it. We'd love to do it. We can see where if they would just let us do it, it would be so much better. But the truth is we can't. We can't do everything. And that's not even true just for us. That is actually true for everybody. And one of the people that it turns out it is true for is even Moses. So we did a whole summer sermon series, if you remember, on Moses, that we didn't use this story. And I'm actually not entirely certain why, but now I'm glad we didn't. Because it's this weird little exchange that happens right at the beginning of Exodus chapter 18. Now, it's important to know where they are, right? So Moses has the Israelites, and they are not in Egypt anymore, but they are less than about like 90 days out. If you keep reading in chapter 19, it's going to say, and then 3 new moons after we left Egypt. So we're in the less than 90 days. So they've been gone from Egypt. They've been gone for a matter of weeks. And Moses has all of these people around him that he is responsible for and needs to take care of. Now, there's actually a lot of debate about how many people it is. It may be tens of thousands. It may be hundreds of thousands. We don't really know. They didn't really keep those kind of records. But needless to say, it is a lot of folks. And it's a lot of folks who have left behind life and left behind a way of doing things and a pattern of life and left behind a place where the Egyptians were very much in charge and did everything they could to make sure that the Israelites never got to make decisions for themselves. They were trained to go to people in authority and ask them their advice and ask them to settle debates and all that time. That's one of the ways that actually the Egyptians controlled the Israelite people. So you've got all of these folks, and now they're in the desert, and they don't really have a lot to do, and bored people can sometimes make mischief. Spend some time with teenagers, and you will understand that. No, I'm just kidding. You're all lovely. And so Moses has this problem. He's got this problem that he's got folks running around and they're getting in quarrels with each other and they're getting in arguments with each other, and he's trying to and the only authority really present in the land amongst all the people that everyone agrees on is an authority is the one guy who seems to have this weird, uncommon direct line to God, right? The guy that they saw do all these miracles, the guy who's been giving them the direction, who led them out, who parted the water, all these sorts of things. There's one person that everybody agrees on. That's the person in charge. So if we got a question or a quandary or we don't know what to do, there's only one guy that we can go to, and his name is Moses. And so Moses he's overwhelmed by it, right? He's no doubt. I mean, he's got literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people, and they're all asking him a question. So Moses does what most of us would do, right, which is just start doing the best he can. So he lines them up and he starts holding court, basically, puts themselves in the role of judge, and people come and they argue whatever they need to argue, and Moses makes a decision and they go off, and then they bring somebody else in and they argue whatever they need to argue, and Moses makes a decision and he sends them off and over and over and over and over again. And Moses is actually overwhelmed, no doubt, by the day-to-day, all the things that need to happen. So much so that he can't see this larger truth, the larger truth being he can't do all of this. The larger truth being he needs help. So now enter his father-in-law, Jethro. Now, Jethro's got Moses' wife and sons in tow. Now, Jethro is not Hebrew. He's not Israelite. He's probably not really even Egyptian either. He's one of the kind of people who lives kind of on the outskirts in the nomadic area. Remember, Moses actually meets his wife and meets his father-in-law when he runs away from Egypt because he's a wanted murderer. Good way to introduce yourself to your future wife. Hi, how you doing? I'm fleeing justice. It's a good opening line. But so Jethro, who is a farmer and a herder outside of the establishment of Egypt, really isn't anybody important that we know of, but happens to have a little bit of, has some animals and has some daughters. And Moses encounters one of these daughters, and they get married, and they have children. And then somewhere, we're actually not entirely certain where, somewhere after Moses goes back to Egypt to confront Pharaoh, Moses and his wife part company. So Jethro is basically escorting Moses' wife and children to where he is now. So that's why he's there. And he shows up as an outsider. He wasn't there for the Exodus. He wasn't there for the crossing of the Red Sea. He wasn't there, for any of it. So he kind of shows up as this outsider, and nobody of really any particular importance, except that he has a little bit of clarity and can see what's going on. And he looks at Moses, he says, Moses, this doesn't work. You can't do this. You're going to wear yourself out. You're going to wear these people out. You need help. Moses, you can't do it all. You need to enable and empower and encourage some other people to do this with you. Or this whole thing that you're about, this whole thing that you are doing, isn't going to work. This is Moses. Moses, who has a direct line to God. Moses, who saw a burning bush. Moses, who should have more faith than any of us will ever encounter and more encouragement than anyone ever encounter. Hopefully has a lot more wisdom than most of us. And Jethro, the father-in-law, has to come and say, wait a minute. No, this isn't going to work. If that's true for Moses, if Moses can find himself in that situation, how much more does it happen to us? How much more likely is it to happen to us? And so I love this scene, and I love this scene because sometimes we need those folks who come from the outside, who are not deep down in the mess with us, to basically point out what should be obvious to everybody, right? So that's what Joseph does. He's coming from the outside, and he says, wait a minute, something's not right here. It's obvious. Don't you see it? And of course, the answer is no. Moses doesn't. All Moses sees is this line of people who need something from him. This line of people who need his help. Moses can't do everything. So Jethro gives him a new something. Jethro recognizes, yes, you are the leader. Everyone knows you are. You have the authority. Everybody knows it. But it also means you can give that authority away. You can delegate. You can find good, quality people. You can lift them up. Lend your authority to them and let them deal with this stuff day to day. Let them deal with the crowd so that you can do the work that you are called to do. Now, if you're like me at all, this idea scares you because it means letting somebody else load the dishwasher and they might not do it right. Right? Now, I have a little bit of a confession. I was, as you noticed, I was gone. I was gone for about 7 days, which is longer than I like to be gone. And I was gone because I was trying to stack a bunch of stuff together. And I was attending this conference, but I didn't quite know the schedule, and I needed to visit a couple of people. So I was trying to work all that out. So I booked out this time, this block of time, so I could go and do all this stuff I could do in just one little trip around the Northwest. And that worked until I got there and started to really fill in all the blanks. And I recognized, once I got it all filled out and got the conference schedules and all these other conference schedules, I had 3 or 4 of these half days where I didn't have anything to do. And I must confess, I had a moment there, I'm like, don't you know how important I am? You want me to just hang around for half a day and do what? Nothing? That don't work. And I was really kind of grumpy about it for a while as I was trying to figure out how to piece in all this stuff. I'm like, all right, I got 4 hours here to kill. I guess I can prep for the Bible study, and I got this, and oh yeah, I suppose I should write a sermon, this one. Think I'll make that work. And on Sunday morning, which was a morning that they had asked us to come to this conference I was speaking, and they asked us to come Saturday night to run through our speeches, but then they didn't need us again until the following evening, so they just deposited us in Seattle for 24 hours with nothing to do. Well, geez, come on now. So I woke up on Sunday morning a little bit grumpy, I must confess, about it. And I went for a walk, and my alarm thing went off on my phone. I'm like, that the live stream from our church was starting, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool, I can watch that. So I tuned into the live stream, and I watched this amazing group of people carry on, do all the things that I normally do on a Sunday morning. A couple of them, and I won't name them, do it a little better than I do it. And at the end of that hour, as I concluded watching it at one of the copious number of Starbucks in Seattle, which is where I was, I then opened up my Bible and realized I needed to work on this sermon. And I thought to myself, well, geez, fine. Everyone loves it when I preach to myself. Okay. Sometimes we run into those moments of life where we recognize that, yes, we do things and we do them that they're important. But sometimes we have to recognize that we don't have to, need to, or even it is even a good idea to try to do it all. Because one of the things that happens when we try to do it all, not only are we going to wear ourselves out, is we are stealing from other people their opportunity to share the gifts that they've been given. When we hoard it all for ourselves, we are actually taking from others their opportunity to shine and show their gifts and graces. That's what I saw on that live stream Sunday morning. Now, this is not a new idea. In fact, it's been around for a long time. And if you look at kind of famous leaders through history, you will find a number of people who have figured this out along the way, and sometimes some unexpected ones. Now, I grew up, as many of you know, in eastern Montana. And in eastern Montana, in Miles City, which is a smaller town, the local library is a big deal, right? I mean, libraries are always a big deal, but the local library, this is ours. It's really ugly, but it works. It actually was the original building is really pretty. Then I don't know what they were doing when they built this bit around it. But somewhere in that library, like many libraries in Montana, you will find a stone somewhere that talks about the fact that that library is there as one of the many Carnegie libraries. So if you don't know this, Andrew Carnegie, which is a big industrialist in the 19th century, who has, I will confess, sort of a mixed reputation. I'm not doubting that. But one of the things that he did later in life is he gave away most of his fortune. You know, Bill Gates did not invent this, right? Carnegie did it first. And he gave away the modern equivalent of something like $95 billion. You can't even don't even try to wrap your head around that amount of money. You can't. But one of the things that he gave to was libraries, and there's libraries all over the country that have his name on them because he gave money to these communities so that they could have these libraries as community space and places where people could gather, and he recognized the importance of them, and they became this lasting legacy that even me, 100 years later, as a small child, got to take advantage of. Well, Carnegie is known as a leader in many ways, and he had this great quote. He says, "No person will make a great leader who wants to do all himself and get all of the credit." One of the things that he was known for was surrounding himself with good people and allowing those good people to use his gifts and graces. He actually has another quote, and basically says, if you're working I can't remember how long he said, but basically if you're working more than 40 hours a week, you're doing it wrong, right? Because you should be getting other people, you should be lifting other people up to help you. So Carnegie discovered this, and that's how he lived his life, and it's really what allowed him to amass the wealth that he did. But not only leaders in that arena, there are other leaders, and these are places I tried to pick people you might not expect. So the other leader, when I was kind of looking around for stories about delegation and the importance of it, the other one that came up that honestly surprised me a little bit was General Patton. Now, General Patton is not somebody you think of when you think of delegation. right? But he had this great quote. He said, don't tell people how to do things, tell them what to do, and let them surprise you with their results. Basically, he says, don't tell them how to do it, just tell them what needs to be done. Delegate them, say, this is the work that needs to be done. Bring your gifts, your graces, your skills to it, and get it done in the way that you are able to do it. Patton recognized he couldn't do everything. He had to have captains and generals and lieutenants and all these people around him who he knew and who he trusted and who he lifted up as leaders, who he knew could get the work done. We all need this in life. We all need those people around us who will help us share the load, whether it's as big as the tasks that people like Carnegie and Patton took on, or as small as simply managing our household and making sure that the dishes get done, or working as a church. As a church, I work really hard. I try really hard to make sure that this isn't all about me, though that's kind of funny because I'm the one standing up here. But I want you all, my goal is to help everyone show their gifts and their graces and their struggles. So at the end of the year, we did a year in review video. Who saw our year in review video? Right? Yeah, there you go. And this was one of those ideas that came up probably about 3 weeks before the end of the year. And it was one of those moments where I walked into the offices of our amazing staff and I said, so I have an idea. At which point they all look away and don't make eye contact, right? You're like, Pastor's got an idea. I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? Like, we have so much pictures and video and everything like that. Couldn't we celebrate what this is? And I had sort of sketched out in my mind what I thought it would be. And I thought, well, if nobody's interested, I could throw this together in a couple hours. Had a thought for it. And then one of our amazing people, Jana, kind of liked the idea. And she's like, I would like to do that. And I said, okay, do you need help? What do you need? She's like, well, give me some pictures. Let me give me what you have. And I said, okay. So I loaded everything I have on a thumb drive. And I said, here, what else do you need? And she's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, don't you want to hear my ideas? I have it all up here. I can write it out for you. The storyboards. She's like, no, I got it. I'm like, okay. And a couple weeks later, she calls me into her office, and I get to see the rough cut of what you all saw. And I got to tell you, man, there were tears. There were tears not only because of the content, there was tears because it was so much better than what I had thought we should do. It was so much better because Jana has a different perspective on this congregation because she sees things differently and she brought her gifts and her graces to what's going on. I would have not only denied myself, but I would have denied us all that gift if I had just said, no, I can do it myself. I know what I'm doing. I don't need help. Well, that's what a lot of people have learned around here. I need a lot of help because we all do. We all need help to be our best selves. We all need to be around people who will help us to step up, learn to do new things, help us explore who we are, explore our gifts or graces, and we all need space to share the gifts and graces we have. But if somebody else is taking up all the space, maybe there isn't space for us. So that's what Jethro saw. Jethro not only saw that Moses was wearing himself out, Jethro also saw that there were people around him that were capable of doing more than he was asking them to do. Jethro also saw that there were people around that Moses could delegate to, could empower, could make space for, people around him who had gifts and graces. And the gift that Moses had is Moses had the authority and he needed to share it. He needed to make space for others so that they could give everything they have to give. And I think that's a lesson that we all can take and learn something from. We all have been given work to do, and it is important work. Sometimes we have been given work that is truly and completely ours, the thing that only we can do. Only Moses at this point can go up on Mount Sinai 2 chapters later to receive the law from God. That hasn't happened yet. Jethro Riley figures out that that's his job. He's got things that he can do, and he is uniquely qualified and gifted to do. His job then is to find others around him, to lift up those around him so that they can do the work that they are uniquely qualified to do. So who are you lifting up? Who around you are you inspiring and equipping to share their gifts and graces? Who in your circle is standing to the side? Who needs to come a little bit more to the middle? Because that's part of what God asks us to do. God absolutely asks us to use our gifts and graces for God's good work. But God also asks us to make room for others so that they can use their gifts and graces too. Even Moses needed to remember this lesson. So I would guess, so do we. Amen. So let us go from this place. Let us go from this time where we have shared in each other's fellowship and company. Let us go claiming the gifts and the graces and the work that God has given to us. That is ours. But let us also go to make room for others so that they can share the gifts and graces that they have been given. Let us go to build God's kingdom. Let us go in peace.